Welcome everybody to Solving Systems of Inequalities. This is a Kuta software worksheet tutorial. A lot of your teacher would probably give you this type of assignment as a handout. I'm going to tell you how to do it. This is Mr. West. Let's get started. Here we have, let's go to number one. But actually before we get into number one, let's establish some parameters. Number one, the easiest way to solve systems of inequalities is to first solve for y. Okay, that's the first thing. You want to get y by itself on one side of the inequality. Number two, it's basically like graphing a regular linear equation, but there's a couple more steps. So we're going to graph, okay, so we're going to graph that, but there's two considerations we have to keep in mind. One is we have to consider a boundary line, and then the fourth one, or the second one of the considerations, special considerations, is we have to know where to shade. Now, the last thing is if we're graphing a system, okay, so for systems, we have to know where the overlap is. So I should write find the overlap. I should just zoom in. Why am I not doing? There we go. Find the overlap. Okay, now, in regard to boundary line, let me change the color here so we can see exactly what we're doing for this particular one. Let's make it, I like these colors over here. Let's make it pink or magenta. I don't know what color that is, actually. Okay, so for boundary line, what we're looking at is we're looking at the inequality sign. We have two different choices here. We either have less than or greater than, and then the other one is less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. If it's this one, it's a dotted. If it's this one, it's solid. And what does that mean? Well, it means that it can include the values on the line. So if we had a point on the line here, that would be good. That would be part of the solution. However, if we had a point on this line up here on the dotted line, this is not a solution. Okay, so that's the difference there. Now, when we're talking about shading, so let's get this guy going. When we're talking about shading, let's make him green. When we shade, now we're looking at something a little bit differently. What we're looking at is we're looking for the possible solutions. So if we see y is greater than or y is greater than or equal to, y is the vertical axis. So if it's greater than, that means up. That means we will shade up. Now if it's the other way, if it's y is less than or y is less than or equal to, we are going to shade down. Okay? And I really should write shade below and shade above. And this is above the line or below the line that you've drawn in question. And then find the overlap, we're just going to see where the two colors merge. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's do number one. So we have it solved for y, done. Now we need to graph, but as we graph, we want to see what kind of boundary line it has. We see here that it has less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, so we know we're going to use a solid line for both. Now, if you don't know how to graph, this is where you're going to have to watch some previous tutorials I have done on slope-intercept form. But this is, I'm doing this video with the understanding that you know how to do this. So I'm going to do the first one here. Let's choose different colors for each of these lines. I'll choose purple for the top one, and I'm going to choose light blue for the bottom one. So for the top one, my y-intercept is -2. My slope is -1. Okay, -1 over 1, so I'm going to go down 1 to the right 1, and I can keep doing that if I want, and even go in reverse. And then I connect my dots. And the other thing to keep in mind is it's a solid line because it's a less than or greater than, less than or equal to sign. Second one, light blue. I go to +2, and then I'm going to go down 5 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. Looks like it lands on that same point there. I'm going to try my best to make it cross. That's pretty darn good. Okay, so we have solid lines for both, and now we are on to the shading. So with shading, let me start with the purple one. We see that we are less than or equal to. That means we are going to shade below. Oh, so we had solid line for this one, and we're going to shade below. Now, how do you know where below is? A lot of students get confused. They're like, oh, is it the left side? Is it the right side? Don't think about left or right with shading. The only time you think about left or right is when you have a vertical line, and that's the exception. However, with this, what I like to do is just look at the y-intercept or any point, circle it, and then just pick a point below that, directly below that. So in this case, I'm going to be directly on the y-axis, and I see, okay, there's a point below. So if that's a point below, then I'm just going to shade all this right here. Okay, and I kind of did a sucky job, but I hope you guys get the point. Okay, so I'm going to shade all that below. Let me get all this. Okay. Now, with this blue line, it's different. This one, we already know it's going to be a solid line, okay? We already established that. And then we're going to shade above because it's y is greater than. If it's y is greater than, we're going to go up. It's talking about the y's vertical values that are bigger than whatever that line is, okay? This one was less than. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get our blue highlighter and we're going to shade above this line. Okay, and we're going to highlight this like this. Sound effects optional. Okay, now we're going to look for overlap. Where is there overlap? It's where the two colors blend. So if we wanted to highlight this in yellow, we would see that it's a solid line here and here. And then we could even change the color and get it like a little gold color. This is going to be our solution. And it actually continues on. So if we were to continue this line, it'd continue this way, and even the shading will continue that way. But that's our solution. That's it. It's pretty simple. It's not as tough as it seems. It just requires some shading. I think the toughest thing people get is the shading part. The boundary line is not so difficult. Most students get that. But the shading is probably the toughest part. So let's go ahead and do a couple more examples. I guess I'll do number 4. This would be a really good one. So we're going to choose 2 colors. We'll do purple for the top one again, and we'll choose light blue for the bottom. Okay, we know we're going to use a solid line for the top one. Okay, because of the symbol, we have this symbol, which means it's a solid line. And then let me do the pink highlighter. That's the step that it corresponds to. And then we have a dotted line with this guy. Okay, now this is a little tricky because we have x is less than or equal to -3. This is a vertical line with an undefined slope. So we're going to go to -3 here, and we're going to make a vertical line at x equals -3. Check out some of my other videos where I talk about that. Okay, so that's my first step. I'm just going to graph the lines, and then I'm going to go to the dotted, and I start at y-intercept of 2, and then I'm going to go up 5. Okay, if you see I go up 5 and over 3, I end up off the graph, so you can go in reverse. Remember, this is equal to this. Those are equivalent because negative divided by negative is a positive. So we can go down 5, 1, 2, let me get my laser pointer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can go over 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'll end up in the same spot, or I'll end up on the same line, I should say. So notice how if I were to connect these dots, even with the one off the graph, it would connect and would form the line. Okay, but this is just showing that you can go backwards as long as you go in the exact opposite direction. So I have a dotted line there, and I'm done with that part, but now I need to shade. Okay, let me start with the blue one. With the blue one, we have y is less than, so we're going to shade below. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to pick a point. There's a point. Where's a point below that? Right there on the line. So I'm going to shade everything on that side of the line. Right here. Okay, I know this is not perfect, but I hope you get the idea. Oops, missed a spot over there. That's a dang it, I wanted it to look a little nicer. Okay, now, this is different. So, now we have a vertical line, x is less than. X is the left and right. So if we're talking about the values that are less than, we're talking about the values to the left. So, there's no above or below a vertical line. Clearly, it's straight up and down, so to choose a side, up and down, you can't. But if it's less than, we're talking about the left side. And if it's greater than, we're talking about the right side. And I'll write this down in just a second, but I just wanted you guys to hear it first. So if we're talking about our solution area, we have this as a dotted line, this as a solid line, and then we're shading everything in between those two. So far we have 2 little slivers. So for shading for this guy, if it's x is greater than, we shade to the right. And if it's x is less than, we shade to the left. Okay, glad we got that one done. Okay, let's see if there's anyone that we have to solve for. Great. So number 8, we're going to do this one. Okay, again, purple, light blue. If you got it and you know how to solve, I would just end the video right here. See ya. Have a great day. But if you want to see how I'd solve it, I'm going to do that right now. So first thing we have to do is solve for y. We're going to subtract 3x from both sides. And we're going to get 2y is greater than or equal to negative 2 minus 3x. Keep in mind, if we divide by a negative number, we need to flip the sign. That's super important. Greater than negative 1 minus 3 over 2x. So what we're going to do here is it's a solid line. We know because of the sign. And we're going to go to negative 1, and then we're going to go down 3 over 2, connect the dots. Pretty good. A little miss there. Can't be perfect, I suppose. Okay, blue, we need to solve for this guy. He's also a solid line. That's good news for us. Makes it easier. We're going to subtract x from both sides first. We get 2y is less than or equal to 2 minus x. We divide by 2, divide by 2. Y is less than or equal to 1 minus 1/2 x. Okay, so then we have 1 is our y-intercept, and we're going to go down 1 over 2 for our slope. And I like to go in reverse, okay, so I get an idea of where it's heading. Okay, and then we go like this, connect the dots. There we go, both are solid. Okay, now what we're gonna do to determine where we're shading, we're gonna look at these equations. Don't look at these ones over here, because they're not solved. So we have these two over here. Let's do our purple first. Purple, we are shading above the line because its y is greater than. We're going to graph like this. Okay, make sure you try to get as much area as possible when shading. Oh, I hate it when it does that. I think it's my Apple Pencil. It's not Notability. Notability, I love Notability, so I'm not going to complain about that. Okay, and then for the blue one, we're shading below because its y is less than. So we're shading below. Okay, and where is our solution? You can see where the colors merge and make it darker. I'm just going to highlight it. You don't probably normally need to do this. If you want, you can. There we go. And then we have this guy right in here. There we go. And that's our solution. Hopefully you guys understand graphing inequalities. It's really not that bad. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.